of New York City, what comes to mind? The roar of the subway, those canyons of steel and glass, the sheer energy of 8 million people living their lives all at once. It feels, it feels permanent, right? Like it's always been this way. But what if I told you that almost everything that makes New York, well, New York, is actually a pretty recent invention? That's the incredible story we're diving into today.
No, I'm serious. Think about it for a second. The Empire State Building, a global symbol of the city, didn't exist 100 years ago. The subway system that's basically its lifeblood? Nope, not then either. This isn't just a city that changed a little bit. It's a city whose entire identity is built on constantly and radically reinventing itself from the ground up.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. We're going to trace that whole 400-year journey all the way from a tiny trading post I was all about business to the sprawling capital of the world. It's a really fascinating story of how this one very specific patch of land became what it is today. We're going to break it down into 5 key parts. We'll start in the lush wilderness, long before any Europeans showed up. Then we'll see the birth of New York under a new flag, race through a chaotic century of insane growth, watch the modern city take its iconic shape, and finally, we'll look at the city's #1 defining trait, its relentless, unstoppable evolution.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. I mean, way back, before the concrete jungle even existed. We're starting in a land of thick forests, clear rivers, and wildlife everywhere. This was the island of Mannahatta, long before anyone had ever heard the name Manhattan.
For thousands of years, this land was home to the Lenape people. They hunted here, fished here, and farmed here, living in balance with the world around them for about 8,000 years. Just think about that number for a second. That's a deep, rich history that existed for millennia before the story of the city as we know it even begins. The first European contact was, well, pretty brief. In 1524, Giovanni de Verrazzano sailed past and claimed it for France, but nothing really came of it. It wasn't until nearly a century later, in 1609, that the real change began. An English explorer named Henry Hudson, who was actually working for the Dutch, explored the river that now has his name. And that exploration, it paved the way for the Dutch to set up a permanent base, Fort Amsterdam, in 1625. And this is a really crucial point about the city's origin story, its DNA. See, New Amsterdam wasn't founded on some grand ideal like freedom or religion. It was a business, a straight-up commercial enterprise. Its whole purpose was to be a protected hub for the super profitable fur trade. So from day one, this city was all about commerce. And with that, the tiny seed of New York City was planted. All right, let's jump into the next phase and see how this little Dutch trading post starts to transform. This is where New Amsterdam fades out, and New York begins its journey to becoming a truly American city, right at the heart of a brand new nation. The transition from Dutch to English was surprisingly peaceful and actually very New York. In 1664, an English fleet just sailed right into the harbor. The Dutch governor at the time, Peter Stuyvesant, was super unpopular, and he couldn't get any of the pragmatic colonists to fight. So the colony was surrendered without a single shot being fired. And just like that, it was renamed New York. Now, as tensions with Britain started heating up, New York became a real hotbed of revolutionary action. It was home to groups like the Sons of Liberty, these secret patriot groups protesting British taxes. But funnily enough, during the war itself, the city was captured by the British and was occupied for most of it. But after the war, because of its location and its commercial power, it became the obvious choice for the first capital of the brand new United States. And this just shows you how important it was right from the start. Right there on Wall Street at a place called Federal Hall, George Washington took the oath of office as the first president. The Bill of Rights was drafted there. I mean, these foundational moments of American democracy, they didn't happen in Philly or Boston. They happened right here in New York City. So if the 18th century was all about political revolution, the 19th century, that was about a demographic explosion. This is where the city's population and its problems grew at a rate that was just both incredible and kind of terrifying. Just look at these numbers. It goes from 60,000 people to over 500,000 in just 50 years. That's insane. This huge surge was really fueled by 2 things: the opening of the Erie Canal, which basically made the city the gateway to America, and massive waves of immigration from people in Europe looking for a better life. But all that growth created a city of unbelievable contrasts. I mean, on one hand, you had this vibrant melting pot, this beacon of hope.
But on the other hand, it was a city of sprawling slums. You had families packed into tiny, dark tenement rooms, and diseases like cholera just ripped through neighborhoods. And in the shadows, you had notorious gangs like the Dead Rabbits ruling the streets. And all of these tensions just finally exploded during the Civil War. There was a lot of anger over a military draft that let rich guys pay $300 to get out of fighting, and that anger ignited the devastating draft riots of 1863. It was a truly brutal, violent chapter that just ripped the lid off the deep, bitter divisions inside the city. Okay, let's jump into the 20th century, which is where the city really starts to look like the New York we all recognize. This is the age of the skyscraper, of dizzying booms and devastating busts, and of global wars that would change its destiny forever. This was an era of pure, unfiltered ambition. It was a frantic race to the sky that gave us that iconic skyline. First, the Woolworth Building, then the absolutely stunning Chrysler Building, and then the legend itself, the Empire State Building. Each one was like a statement, a testament to the city's relentless drive to be the biggest and the best. And in just a few years, the city swung from one wild extreme to the other. The Roaring Twenties were just a blur of jazz music, flappers, and illegal booze in thousands of speakeasies. The party felt like it would never stop. But then, the Wall Street crash of '29 hit, and the party was over. The city plunged into darkness, with breadlines around the block and desperate families living in shacks in Central Park. The city's fortunes, and really the whole country's, started to turn around with World War II. Its factories were just pumping out war materials, and its ports became the absolute critical hub for shipping troops and supplies across the Atlantic. This huge effort didn't just help win the war, it cemented New York's importance on the world stage. And that brings us to the end of our story, and to the city's core identity. The one thing that has defined it through every fire, every market crash, and every single transformation. Its almost supernatural ability to get back up again. This quote from our source really just says it all, doesn't it? More than any building or any landmark, New York's defining feature is its incredible resilience. This is a city that has absolutely mastered the art of reinvention, not just once, but over and over and over again. After World War II, with much of Europe in ruins, New York really stepped into this new global role. It became home to the United Nations, it became a major rival to London's financial markets, and it basically inherited the title of the center of the art world from Paris. It finally cemented its status as a true global capital. Which brings us to today. The city is completely, totally unrecognizable from that small Dutch trading post where it all began. It has evolved, it has collapsed, and it has rebuilt itself time and time again. And so, the big question we're left with is this. Looking back at its entire history of constant, radical change, what on earth is next for the ever-evolving city?